Hey guys, so today I'm here with the Alpine 9-inch in-dash navigation system with off-road mapping, fitting all 2011 to 2018 JK Wranglers. So this is going to be for that JK owner that wants to step up their game from their current head unit and get a multimedia receiver and a navigation system that is topping the rest. So this option by Alpine is going to offer you a number of different standard features, as well as a number of different additional features that you would ever want and need out of a navigation system. So you have that huge 9-inch, very responsive touchscreen display. You have all of the features as far as answering calls and the Uconnect go. You have the radio as well as Bluetooth, and you even have the option to hook this up to Android Auto as well as Apple CarPlay. Now the huge thing about this navigation unit, and this specific one by Alpine, is the fact that it has off-road mapping. So that's going to ensure that you are tracked throughout your trail ride. This is going to offer you information via the OBD2 port of your pitch and your roll and all the other vehicle settings that you would ever need while you're out on the trail, which makes this a key modification if you're looking for an all-in-one head unit. So not to mention, with the head unit, you do get the new bezel to accommodate that larger head unit, and that is going to not only just accommodate and look a little bit more rugged, it is going to modernize the interior of your Wrangler while retaining all of those factory features. So you're still getting your storage up top, you're still reusing those factory vents as well as your window control module, and it overall fits very well inside of the Wrangler as far as the styling and the interior go. So as far as pricing goes, this is going to be one of your most expensive choices on the page for a navigation system at roughly $3,000. So even though this is one of your most expensive choices, if you are looking at more cost-effective choices, they are not going to have all of the features as well as a lot of the quality and components that are put into this. So if you don't really have a budget and you're looking for an all-in-one head unit that gives you the most out of your Wrangler, this is going to be a good choice to take a look at. So install is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrenches. There is a little bit of modification and cutting required, as well as a little bit of wiring. So you will need a little bit of mechanical know-how in order to do this. However, it's nothing you can't get done in your driveway with some basic hand tools in probably 2 hours worth of your time. So speaking of that install, let's jump into it now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, a body saw, trim removal tools or interior removal tools, a file, a 3-inch extension, a 7mm deep socket, a T20 Torx bit, a 1/4-inch drive ratchet, and 2 Phillips head screwdrivers. So the first step of our install is just to remove this plastic tray that's going to sit on the top of our dash here. And then we can take a 7mm socket and remove the bolt that's holding in the top of our dash. I'm also using a small extension just because that's going to give me a little bit of room to work with. Once that screws out, we can put that to the side and move down to our window control unit. So our next step is to take out this trim piece that is holding on our window controls. So I'm going to take a trim piece removal tool or a pry tool and just go on the outside of that crack there, and we can wedge it out. So once that's popped out, there is going to be a wiring harness. Just want to go ahead and pull up on that plastic tab to release it and depress that tab and just pull forward. So after that control unit is out, you'll be able to have access to a 7mm bolt in the center there. We're going to go ahead and remove that as well. So this is where the extension comes in handy. It gives you a little bit of extra room. And we can put that to the side as well. So our next step is to take off this trim piece that is below our steering wheel. You should be able to pop it off, or if you need to, you can use that trim removal tool, but you're just going to pull forward and it should just pop out. It does have retainer clips as well as these bottom retainers too. So you're going to have a 7mm screw just like the other ones on either side of your steering wheel. It's going to be holding on those bottom tabs for the top part of your dash. So this might be a little difficult to see, but it's going to be the same exact thing. that was on the other side of your steering wheel. So it's that same exact bolt, you're gonna use the same exact tool. So when that's removed, we're ready to remove our dash. So now we can remove the whole dash. Now, if you have to lower your steering wheel, just pull that lever on the side. I would recommend to put it in the lowest setting so you can get this bottom trim piece out. But we're gonna start on this side and just pull back. It's going to be just in with retainer clips, so it will come off very easily. So our stock head unit is held in here by 4 7mm screws, one on each corner. So we're gonna take that 7mm socket again and go ahead and remove those. Then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side of our head unit. So once those are removed, you can push it on the back if it's giving you a little bit of trouble, but we can just wiggle this whole head unit out. Now be careful because you will have wires on the back here, but we're just going to go ahead and disconnect those. So there should be tabs on each of them where you can just press the tab and pull back. So after the head unit is out, we can put that aside. And if you can tell, there is a back bracket here that we are going to need to remove. So we have to take off this module to expose this 7mm screw that's holding on this main bracket here. So I'm going to use a trim removal tool and go behind this foam and just pop this forward. That should disconnect there. There is a little Christmas tree attachment in there, a little clip. Then we can take our 7mm socket and our ratchet. You might have to ditch that extension for now, but we can take off these 2 screws on either side. So after that screw is out, what we can do is just be careful of our wiring harness, but we can remove this bracket. So our first step is to take out our vents. Now you're gonna need a flathead screwdriver, and what you're gonna do is depress a tab. We are going to twist it and then push it out forward through the front of our dash. So there is going to be a tab here. We have to depress it and get it underneath that one. Then we can twist it and wiggle it out. Move on to our next one. So we're gonna have to push that tab forward, push this one down, and then simultaneously turn the vent. So what we're gonna be doing next is cutting these 2 pieces. So we have to separate these 2. We obviously are replacing this bezel with the new one that comes into the kit, but we have to keep this one because we're gonna be reinstalling it. So along this body line or along this trim line, we are going to cut it. Now you can use a number of different tools in order to do this. I am going to use a body saw that's pneumatic, and then we can go ahead and start cutting. So I'm just going to use this pneumatic body saw and cut along this trim line. Now we're gonna clean up this edge and then we can go install everything in our Wrangler. So first off, I would recommend to have your Alpine unit on a microfiber towel or anything soft so you are not scratching up the front face of your Alpine unit. But our next thing is going to wire this up so we can get it ready to be installed on our Wrangler. Now once we're in our Wrangler, we have to do a little bit of wiring and then connect those wires to here and the harnesses, but we're gonna start on the back of our source and display unit. So first thing I'm gonna do is put on our HDMI cable. So this HDMI is gonna go from HDMI in to HDMI out from the source unit to the display unit, and you're gonna have some brackets to keep them in place. So we're going to insert the HDMI in on our source unit and then to HDMI out on our display unit. Then we have a couple of brackets that will hold those in place. And there is gonna be a little screw that will hold it in place as well. So you can just twist that down until it's pretty much set. Same thing for the HDMI out. The bracket for up top is gonna be bigger than for the bottom one, but this one is going to hook on to this up here and insert into some little tabs. And you can screw this in and we'll move on to our display in and out. So now that that is in place, we can move on to our display in and out. Your cord is gonna look like this. You're gonna have covers that will match the actual covers on the nail connector pins. So we are just going to plug that from our source unit on display out to our display unit on display in. So once that is on, we can move to our main unit. Now, our first thing that we're going to plug in is our DVD display. This is going to be connected to our power right down at the bottom right-hand corner. All right, you just want to make sure that's clicked in, and that will also have an inline fuse on there. Then we can move to our next connectors. This is going to be your wireless remote. We are going to plug that in right under our HDMI unit bracket. It's going to say wireless remote. There also is a large wiring diagram that you will be able to take a look at in the instructions. But if you follow the pins, so this is going to match up with this one. This is going to be our power for our source unit. You should be able to figure it out. However, it does tell you that a couple of things don't need to be plugged in for this whole unit. So you don't necessarily have to plug everything in for this to work. So for our cam, aux, and data, it's going to plug into the pin connector up at the top. And that is going to be CAN IF. Now you have a key harness here that we are going to put to the side. And all of these wires down here, a lot of them at least, are going to be plugged into our Maestro. Now you also have a key wiring harness. This main connector up at the top is going to connect to existing key. We are going to put that up right next to our wireless remote and pre-out. So for pre-out, you have this wire. Now, if you are just going to use the amplifier that is in this system, you don't have to plug this in. Now, if you are plugging this in, you will need an external amplifier, an aftermarket amplifier, because what this is going to do is take that raw signal and route it to your aftermarket amplifier and bypass the one that's in here. So we don't have an aftermarket or external amplifier, so we are going to put this wire to the side. Now, while we are here, I'm going to take our microphone extension or adapter and plug that into the existing wire right next to the fan. And that should be everything for on the source unit as well as the display unit for right now. We have a USB port. That's going to be connected to our Uconnect system, but we have to extend the Uconnect system inside our Wrangler first, and then we can move on to our Maestro. So we have two things that you need to connect before plugging everything into your module. So you have your exit display side of your key harness and your key harness here. So we are going to plug that in. Going to be a 3-pin connector. Now, if you don't plug this in, your display unit and your source unit, the whole unit together will not turn on. So this is very important. If you have a camera that you want to adapt this to, you want it wired into your Alpine unit, you would use this adapter. This is gonna be your input adapter, and it's gonna connect to this wire on your main harness. Now, we don't have that, so we are going to take that off and put that aside. So now we're going to plug the other side of our main harness into our Maestro module. Now you have a red, white, and black wire with a 3-pin connector. That's gonna go into this top port up here. Now we're not gonna be using this blue one, but we are gonna be using the green one right next to it. So there is a pin connector with a green cover that we are going to plug in. Now you have a large 3-pin connector. We're going to plug our yellow, red, and black into the back of here. Now this is going to be a little bit congested, but we can clean that up in the future with a couple of zip ties. Now our last one on this side is going to be the blue, white, black, and red. We are just going to plug it into that 4-pin connector on this side. Now this last connector down at the bottom, that's going to be to plug into your computer. So that's going to be for that wire, but we can move to the other side of the Maestro after you are finished with the one side. So now on the other side, we're only going to have 2 wires. You have an 18-pin connector. And plug that in. This red and the chime here, this 2-pin connector, we are not going to use. We're going to take that 10-pin connector. You can use process of elimination because this side is mainly not labeled, so we can plug in that 10-pin connector. Hear a click, and then we can start to wire everything else up in our Wrangler and get this all connected. But we are finished with the display unit and our source unit. So before we can go ahead and wire anything or mount anything up, we have to get this trim piece out of the way. So you're gonna take your body saw or your air saw, and we're gonna go ahead and cut right on those outer portions. So what we're gonna do next is start to wire stuff in. So we're going to tap into the factory Uconnect system, but the module for the Uconnect is right behind this climate control unit. So I'm gonna take a trim removal tool and just pull forward on the control unit, and it will pop out of place. There should not be any screws holding this in. It should be held in by those retainer clips, but you are gonna have a couple of wiring harnesses that control this behind here. It may be a little bit hard to see. We are just going to unplug them. They're all going to have little tabs that you just depress and pull back from. Okay, now we can put our control unit to the side, and this is going to be our Uconnect module. So you're gonna need that same 7mm socket that we used before. That 3-inch extension might help you out here, but you're gonna have 2 screws holding this in. So I'm gonna go for the one on the left side first. And then there's gonna be one in this bottom hole down here. So once that is out, we should be able to wiggle this out of place. So once this module is out, you can unplug this gray plug down on the left-hand side nearest to the steering wheel, and we're going to take our USB adapter for our Uconnect and plug the gray side into that existing plug for our Uconnect. Now what we can do at this point is take our USB extension, because this side is going to go into the back of our Alpine unit, and we can plug that into the female part of our USB extension. So once that's plugged in, we can now run this USB up behind our dash. And then what we can do from that point is then just reinstall that Uconnect module. Now you are gonna have to move that out of the way, but it will fit pretty perfectly right next to there. So what we can do next is reattach this module here with the 2 screws that we originally took out. So now we can take our climate control unit, plug everything into the back, and clip it into place. So our next step is to wire in our microphone that's going to go right above our rear view mirror and our GPS unit that is going to be on our soundbar. Our customer has a switch panel mounted up here. I'm just going to loosen this up because we have to take this trim piece panel down so we can cleanly run our wires. Now if you have a switch panel like this that's mounted up to this footman loop, all you have to do is loosen up these screws. I'm just using a Phillips head screwdriver. And you don't have to completely take them off, you just have to, okay, well that one came completely off, but there is a little bracket that will act as a U bracket where you can just slide this down. I'm just going to catch that on a thread so we can install that in a little bit. So now we can take a trim removal tool and just pop this down and out of place. It's going to be held on by these same clips that are on the dash there. So this middle piece will be tucked into the corner piece. So we can just pop that out. So now we can pop this corner out of place. So this bracket for the soft top is just holding this in place. So what I'm gonna do is take off our driver's side visor. This is just gonna help clear up this area since it is a little bit congested. I'm taking a T20 Torx bit, a extension, as well as my 1/4 inch drive ratchet, and I'm just gonna take out those 2 Torx screws that are holding it in. So now that that's out of the way, what we can do is move down to this bottom hole. There is a clip. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're going to take off that clip. So what I'm going to do is take a Phillips head screwdriver. You want to be very light with this because it's very easy to strip this out. So you just take that Phillips head screwdriver to get the middle part off of the clip so it releases. Then we can take a trim removal tool and just pull that forward. You can tell this came out, so we can put that to the side. We'll be installing that after. This is the back part of that clip, and then we'll be able to fully remove this side, or just at least pop it out of place. And we can hang that down here as well, because there are going to be wires that are connected to the back of here. So what I'm going to do is just take off this trim piece too. I know it looks like a mess right now, but it will be buttoned up in a second. So we are just going to just pull this forward. It's going to be held in by the same clips that the rest of the trim is. And that's just going to tuck into this bottom piece here. So I just need to pull everything forward. We don't need to take anything off or disconnect really any of these wires. We're just going to tuck our new wires in with the existing wires. So now we can grab our microphone and our GPS unit and wire those in. So our first step to all of this wiring is just to clip our microphone where we want it. So It's going to be right above our rear view mirror. That way it will hear you or your passenger or anybody in the front when you're using Siri or Google. So what we can do now is wire our mic wire through our dash. Now I'm very loosely doing this. I have one of the panels out of the way. We can tuck everything and zip tie everything in our panels in just a second, but I want to make sure that this will reach our dash and has a decent amount of room before we go ahead and tuck anything away. So what I'm going to do is run it down through this panel and behind our gauge cluster here. Right above this vent, you can grab the wire. It's a little bit difficult to see, however, when you're doing this, be able to see perfectly where this is going through. I'm just going to thread it through just so I have an idea of where it's going to sit. Now I'm going to thread it behind underneath this Alpine speaker here. And you also want to just make sure that it's out of the way of any clips. You don't want to run this wire through any holes that are specifically for clips because the wire will get crushed and damaged. So my trim removal tool will help me just grab this, or you can use a coat hanger or a wire grabber, but that seemed to work just fine. And we can run it up underneath our dash. And with this, you kind of want to follow the rest of the wires that are behind your dash already. That will give you the best idea of where to put these. So now we can mount up our GPS unit. The other side of this black box is going to be this gray connector. This has to be plugged in the back of our source unit. So we are going to mount this up with the sticky tape on top of our roll bar, on the painted part of our roll bar, and then tuck it in our roll bar cover. Now, this placement is going to give you the best signal according to Alpine. So we want to make sure that we are mounting it up on our sound bar or your roll bar. So I am just going to peel this little piece of paper back and stick that up on our sound bar. Now it's a little hard to see because our customer soft top is here and it doesn't flip back all the way, but right next to your roll bar cover on the painted part of your sound bar is where it needs to sit. Then we can peel this away, get this zipper out and start to unravel this and tuck it into there, and that will come out right where we took off that trim piece. So as soon as we get this wire in here, what we can do is kind of button this up. So we can just run this above here, and then we can drop this down through. And what I'm going to do is just tuck it with this right now, so we can pull this wire through and then zipper back up our roll bar cover. So we can wire this GPS connector right where we did with our mic. So behind over here, pull that through. This one's not going to have as much slack, but it will reach to that middle part there. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that this is tucked just like our mic wire. And our last wire that we have to run up behind our gauge cluster is going to be our OBD2 wire. This is going to pull all of that information from your OBD2 into your Alpine unit. So what we're going to do now is wire up our OBD2 connector. Now, it is a lot easier to drop a wire down than to pull one up because of gravity. So I'm going to take the side that is going to connect to our OBD2 port and run that underneath our steering wheel and back down through. So now that that is ran through underneath our steering wheel, what we can do is connect this to our OBD2. And what I would recommend is to tie this wire with a zip tie up with the other wires. So our last thing that we have to do is just take the little connector, the 2-pin connector from our OBD2 port, and put that through over to our dash area. So now that our 3 wires are here, what we can do is zip tie them all up and button up these trim pieces. So what we can do now is start tucking everything out of the way. Now I am just going to take a couple zip ties and make sure that these are all in the right location. Now this customer just also has this wire here for their switch panel, so you want to make sure if you have one of those or anything mounted up to the top trim piece or your dash that it's all in the zip tie, out of the way of any connectors for our trim pieces. But that seems pretty good there, so what we can do is slide this bottom piece in and start putting our trim back together. All right, so moving up, we can start to pop this into place. Making sure that everything is out of the way of all of our pins. So making sure all of your panels are tucked within each other and they're out of the way of any attachment points, we can start to pop everything into place. So we had this bracket tucking part of our trim piece into place, so I'm just going to do the same thing. Just taking that T20 Torx bit and just tightening up that bracket. And we're just going to make sure that this is getting tucked as well. Our mic fell out of our holder, but that's okay. So once they're pretty much tucked, we can start to snap this into place. All right, there we go. So what we can do is just put our visor back on using that T20 Torx bit and the 2 Torx bolts that we took out originally. What I like to do is just secure the other part of the visor just so it's not flapping around on you. A little bit easier to install that way. So now we're going to install our bracket. Now this is going to align where our factory one used to. So we can take the 2 7mm bolts that we took out before and mount those up. Now you want to make sure that this tab is facing up. There is a rubber headed screw that will go in there to keep the head unit stable. So once those are threaded in, we can tighten them back down with that 7mm socket. Now we're going to start plugging everything in. So the first thing that I want to plug in is our OBD2 port connector. So this is going to come off of that main harness. It's going to be a 2-pin connector. So we can take our mic cable and put it in mic in. This is going to be on your key harness. And the key harness is going to be for that bezel because that has wiring in it. Then our GPS, that's going to go into the back of our source unit. And then we have 2 main wiring harnesses off of our main harness here. And this looks like a mess right now, guys. However, this will be cleaned up with zip ties, so don't worry. So our main wiring harness that we took out of our old head unit is going to go in that same port. And then we have the smaller wiring harness, and these are all going to look the same. They should have gray connectors. You should hear it clip into place. Now our last thing that we have to hook up is our radio. So we have a wire on here that has an adapter on it. So earlier I called this the mic wire. This is not the mic wire. I got them switched up because they look the same. This is our antenna wire. So we're going to plug that in. I know you guys saw earlier that I plugged that in, but you want to make sure that that's plugged in. Then we can take our adapter, plug that in, And once that's plugged in, we can take our adapter harness and put it into the red and the white plug. And that will clip into place. And now all we have to do is just clean this all up, making sure our window control unit is out of the way of all of those zip ties, and we can mount this up into place. Last but not least, I told you guys that this hole was going to be for this rubber cap screw. This is just going to make sure that everything is aligned, but we have that little screw that we have to put into the back of our display unit. So we're just going to screw that into place quickly, and then that will make sure that everything aligns. So now we can go ahead and clean everything up. So now I would just make sure that everything's cleaned up and out of the way, and we can go ahead and mount this up. So as you guys saw, I put 2 bolts in. You are going to need to put those 4 remaining 7mm bolts in to hold up your unit. And then before we button the dash up, you want to make sure that this thing is working and all of your connections are good. All right, so after you have plugged everything in and you made sure that it is working and all the features are operational, what we can do is start to button this back up. So I'm gonna start with this trim piece. So what we're gonna do now that our dash is back on, we're going to resecure those 2 screws on either side of the steering wheel that we originally had taken off. I'm just using an impact right now to speed up the process. So our next step is going to be to install our bezel. However, as you can see, we need to get our vents in first. So I just put one in. However, we're going to do it the same exact way that we took them out before. We're going to put it in through the front, and you will have little divots that you'll have to line it up with. Right, and once you can pull it all the way through, you're going to have that original little tab that you need to line up. So once we pull the vent through and have it in place, we can twist it, and you should hear that click, and they will be in place. Now we can line this up, get this harness through, but we also have to connect this exit key harness that's attached to the back of our display unit and our source unit here. It's going to go on the driver's side, so right now it's going to be on your right side. We're going to plug that in, then turn this around and clip everything in. Making sure that our window control unit here, that wiring harness is good to go. So once you have everything lined up, just press this into place. It should be sitting pretty flush with your screen. And then we can go ahead and grab our window control unit. So our last thing that we have to do is just put in our window control unit. Make sure that clicks and that red tab is pushed down. And then we can just pop this into place. So after you put your bezel on, then you're all set to go, and you can fire this up and set up your new system. So once you put your key in and your ignition and your accessory is on, you'll be displayed to this Alpine Restyle unit. And I do like the fact that you have some lighting on either side. Now our radio is not working right now just because we are inside of our building and we don't have that great of reception in here. However, you are going to have all of your channels prompted for you just like a regular head unit would. If you pull down on this tab, you will have all the access to adjust all of your audio. You will also have your Bluetooth device list, as well as your device priority, so you can set priority to them. You will have your general settings, as well as a bunch of other stuff. If you pull up on it, you will be able to go through your apps here, so you can go through your radio. You're gonna have a DVD as well, and then your Bluetooth audio. We have nothing hooked up to that just yet, but then you can go into other apps like your phone. You obviously need to hook up a phone to that, and then You can also do your vehicle info. So right now we have 3 of the doors open, all of our PSI. That's what our OBD2 port is pulling. So we have a voltage meter right here. You can check all of your gauges as well, your coolant, your load, as well as your intake and your fuel, and you will be able to modify those parameters. Not like a tuner, but you can just select what you want and where you want it. You'll be able to view all of your vehicle information in there. You have these buttons on the side that are completely functional, so you can go into your favorites. This, just as a prompt, has gas stations or quick places to go, as well as your radio FM1. You can use your Siri or hands-free or your Google, whatever you're using with your Apple CarPlay or your Android CarPlay, and then you can go into your audio over here on the side. Your biggest 2 are going to be your audio and your navigation system. Your volume is over here. You have your seek buttons over there to find channels. You have your eject button, which is going to open this up so you can put any DVD or anything into that right there, which is pretty nifty because it just moves that 9-inch display out of the way. So one of the main features about this is that it is a navigation unit. So once you hit your navigation unit, it will pull up in a pretty standard map. But the really cool thing about this is the fact that we can turn this into the off-road. So once you pull up on that bottom tab, you're gonna have an off-road button, and this is going to completely change that screen. We can roll that back down again, and you are going to get some new features out of your navigation unit that you wouldn't out of a standard unit. So up top, you can see that this has a couple more displays. You have your pitch as well as your roll here, so you can keep an eye on that while you are out on the trail. You have a compass up at the top, and the cool thing about this is the fact that it doesn't tell you where to go, it tells you where you are. So this is all done by tracking. If you press on these, you have your coordinates. You also have other information like your voltage while you're off-roading. You have all of your tire pressures left and right. And if you pull over on this, it will give you more information. This is pretty standard out of save locations, places, and an address. You have main routes. But what is also really cool is that you have this off-road feature, which you don't see out of a lot of head units. So you have your trailhead. You can pick a trailhead where you are going to or where you've been or your plan on going, and it will track you through that whole area. So you have your off-road vehicle area, you have camping, you have car service near wherever you are off-roading. It will give you fun tracks for the trailhead, so we can push into that, and it will just give you a couple of different locations as far as trails go. But this is going to be a key feature in actually performing off-road. This is actually a really cool mod as far as that goes, because it is going to tell you everything, and it will even track your ride by GPS and by tracking this actual unit. So overall, this is going to be very helpful as far as navigation goes. This is really what this unit specifically is all about. And when you're not off-roading, when you're out on the road, you can turn that feature off so you don't have to use all of that feature at one time. Now, a lot of these features you are going to have to set up yourself because it is going to be specific to you, but I wanted to go over those main features for you, and you can kind of dabble in them. There is a manual that you will have to go through for all of the main features as well as all of the little features that are in this, but those are all of the main features that I wanted to go over.
So that's going to wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.